Have you ever walked into a place and felt like no one saw you? Not in a deep, emotional way, but literally. Like you were standing right there, alive, breathing, ready to speak. And somehow no one noticed. That's exactly how Malcolm Price felt that day. And the craziest part? He was standing in the middle of one of his own hotels. Malcolm was 47, a quiet kind of successful. He didn't flash money or name drop. He let his work speak for him. And his work? It built an empire. A chain of 5-star hotels known around the world for class, comfort, and service. His hotels weren't just nice. They were the gold standard. But even gold can rust if no one checks it. Malcolm had been getting complaints. Not from one or two guests, dozens. And all of them pointed to the same hotel. Guests feeling ignored. Employees acting rude. Some even said they felt looked down on. Especially if they were black or brown. Malcolm knew something was wrong. And he also knew how things worked. When the boss visits with cameras and a clipboard, people pretend. Smiles get brighter. Voices get sweeter. Nothing real shows. So, he showed up with no warning. No luxury car. No suit. No name tag. Just Malcolm, in a simple shirt and jeans, walking into the very lobby he designed years ago with his own 2 hands. The marble floors still gleamed. The chandeliers still sparkled. But something felt off. Behind the front desk stood a young woman, early 20s. Blonde hair tied up in a loose bun. Her name tag read Kim. She was glued to her phone, tapping away, not even pretending to look busy. Malcolm walked up and waited. Nothing. He cleared his throat. Still nothing. He gently tapped the desk. That's when Kim sighed loudly, like someone had just interrupted her in the middle of something incredibly important. Slowly, she looked up, eyes heavy with boredom. "Yeah?" she asked, not even faking a smile. Malcolm stayed calm. "Hi, I have a reservation. Malcolm Price." Kim rolled her eyes and tapped at the keyboard lazily. What did you say your name was?" "Malcolm Price." She typed again, slower this time. "Yeah, no, I don't see anything. Could you please check again?" Another eye roll. She didn't even look at him. "If it's not showing, it's not here. You probably booked the wrong location. Happens a lot." Malcolm paused. He could feel it. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't the system. It was her. She had already decided something about him. That he didn't belong here. Maybe it was his clothes. Maybe it was his skin. Maybe it was both. He kept his voice calm. "Can you check again? I have the confirmation email right here." He pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. The reservation was there. Clearly booked. Clearly confirmed. Kim barely looked. "Yeah, well, sometimes the system glitches. Not my fault." She shrugged. And that's when he knew. This wasn't a glitch. It was a decision. She had decided he didn't matter. Malcolm took a deep breath. He didn't want to cause a scene. Not yet. But he also wasn't going to let this slide. He quietly pulled out his second phone. The one that gave him access to all internal hotel systems. He tapped in his login details. Found the reservation instantly. And then he looked at the activity log. There it was. His reservation had been manually deleted. And right next to it, the name of the person who deleted it. Kim. Front desk clerk. He looked up at her again. "Tell me something, Kim," he said softly. She blinked, caught off guard. "Yes. What happens when someone deletes a reservation?" She shrugged. "It just disappears. It's gone from the system. And who can do that?" "Only front desk staff," she answered without thinking. "Like yourself?" "Yeah." "Why?" Malcolm turned his phone around and showed her the screen. Her name. Right there. She froze. Her eyes locked on the screen. For the first time, she looked nervous. Her lips parted. like she wanted to speak but didn't know what to say. Malcolm leaned a little closer, voice still calm but sharper now. "So why did you delete my reservation, Kim?" I didn't mean to," she whispered. He tilted his head. "Didn't mean to? Or didn't think I'd find out?" She didn't answer, just stared. And the funny thing, the lobby was quiet now. People had started to notice. A couple guests turned their heads, pretending not to listen. A bellhop near the elevator stood perfectly still. Malcolm stepped back and smiled. "All right then, find me a room." Kim scrambled to type. Her fingers shook slightly. Yeah, okay. Here you go, sir. Room 1427. Malcolm raised an eyebrow. He knew that room. It was one of the worst in the building, next to the noisy elevator shaft with a view of the garbage bins. He had designed the floor plans himself. She was still trying to insult him. "Do I look stupid to you, Kim?" Her eyes widened. "No, Then why did you give me the worst room in this hotel?" I didn't mean." "You did," Malcolm said, taking the key card from the desk. "And you just don't know who you're messing with." He smiled one last time, turned around, and walked toward the elevator. But make no mistake, this wasn't over. Not even close. Because Malcolm wasn't here just to check in. He was here to clean house. And by the time the night ended, Kim would remember this moment for the rest of her life. When Malcolm reached his room, yes, that dreaded room 1427, he didn't sit down or unpack. He stood by the window, staring out at the row of dumpsters below. Loud humming from the elevator shaft filled the room. He knew every flaw in that space because he had personally signed off on its construction years ago. This room wasn't an accident. It was a message, a silent way of saying, "You're not welcome here." And Kim had sent that message loud and clear. But what Kim didn't know was who she'd sent it to. Malcolm opened his laptop, calm and methodical. This wasn't just about his pride. This was about his people. If she treated him this way, imagine how she treated everyday guests, especially black guests, or anyone who looked like they didn't belong. He logged into the internal hotel system and started searching. First stop, complaint logs. And there it was, a list long enough to scroll for minutes. A guest reported being ignored at check-in. No follow-up. Guest claimed reservation was mysteriously missing. Front desk accused of speaking rudely to guest of color. Complaint dismissed without documentation. Staff involved. Kim. Over and over again, her name popped up. Different guests. Same attitude. Same pattern. And then he checked staff performance reports. Her name was there too. Multiple warnings. Poor guest satisfaction scores. Uncooperative behavior. So why was she still working there? Malcolm clicked again. Manager evaluations. Stephen Lane. Hotel manager. 49 years old. Friendly on paper. But his notes were full of vague excuses. Phrases like trying her best, just needs guidance, good potential. Malcolm leaned back in his chair and shook his head slowly. That wasn't leadership. That was cowardice. He shut his laptop. Time to make a visit. The manager's office was tucked behind a side hallway near the staff lounge. Malcolm didn't knock. He walked straight in like he owned the place. Because, well, he did. Stephen Lane jumped from his chair. "Mr. Price." "Sir, what a surprise." Malcolm shut the door quietly behind him. No anger on his face. Just disappointment. "Stephen, we need to talk." Stephen scrambled to clear his desk. "Of course." "Absolutely. Anything you need." Malcolm sat across from him, folding his hands. "Do you know what's happening at your front desk?" Stephen hesitated. "I believe things are running smoothly." Malcolm raised an eyebrow. "You believe?" "Well, you know, every place has a few bumps. But we're handling them. No, Stephen, you're not. You're ignoring them. Stephen tried to smile. If something happened, I'll fix it. Malcolm cut him off. Kim deleted my reservation. Silence. Stephen blinked. She what? I saw it in the system. With her name on the log. Stephen looked like someone had pulled the ground from under his feet. I didn't know. I swear, Mr. Price. Malcolm's voice remained calm. And I found a long list of guest complaints, most of them tied to her. You saw those too, didn't you? Stephen swallowed. Well, I did, but I thought maybe she just needed more training. Stephen. Malcolm leaned forward, voice low. She doesn't need training. She needs to be fired. Immediately. In the lobby. Right now. Stephen froze. You want me to do it now? Yes. In front of everyone. So they know this place has standards again. Stephen turned pale, but he nodded slowly. Okay. Back in the lobby, Malcolm stood near the front desk, watching. The tension was thick. Kim was still behind the counter, laughing at something on her phone, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Stephen walked up to her, stiff and nervous. Kim, he said, can we speak for a second? She barely looked up. What? You're being let go. Effective immediately. Kim laughed. Wait, what? You've been reported for discrimination, mishandling guest information, and deleting confirmed bookings. It's all been reviewed. You're dismissed. Kim's mouth opened in shock. Wait, are you serious? Yes, Stephen said. Clean out your locker. She looked around the lobby. Guests were watching. Her face turned red. She turned to Malcolm, still unaware of who he was. You did this, she hissed. He raised an eyebrow. You deleted my reservation. Treated me like I didn't exist. Gave me a garbage room. And you don't even know who I am. She blinked. Who are you? Malcolm gave her a calm smile. I'm Malcolm Price. Her mouth dropped open. No words, only silence. Then she turned, grabbed her purse, and stormed out of the hotel. The bellhop whispered to another clerk. That's the Malcolm Price? He nodded. Yep, the owner. And just like that, the energy in the room shifted. Malcolm turned to Stephen, who was still sweating. I handled it, Stephen said weakly. Malcolm didn't smile. No, Stephen. I handled it. You just watched. Then came the final blow. You're fired too. Stephen froze. Wait, what? You let this hotel rot. You ignored every complaint. That makes you part of the problem. Stephen looked like he might cry. Please, sir, I can change. No, you should have changed before I walked in. Stephen opened his mouth, but Malcolm had already turned away. The lobby was still. Every staff member watched him, unsure of what would happen next. Malcolm picked up the front desk phone and called his executive office. This is Malcolm Price. Shut this hotel down for full audit. Review every complaint. Compensate every guest. And reevaluate every single employee. Effective immediately. He hung up. A younger clerk approached him nervously. Sir, do you work for corporate? Malcolm chuckled softly. Something like that. And with that, he turned toward the elevator, leaving behind a stunned staff, a silenced lobby, and a story no one there would ever forget. Because that day, everyone learned something. You never know who's watching, especially when the person you ignore owns the building. Malcolm didn't return to room 1427 that night. Instead, he went to the presidential suite, the one with marble floors, city skyline views, and a private elevator. The kind of room usually reserved for celebrities, heads of state, or CEOs, people like him. As he settled in, Malcolm poured himself a glass of water, took a long breath, and opened his laptop again. It was time to clean house, because this wasn't just about Kim or Stephen. This was about every guest who had ever walked into that hotel and felt invisible. The people who saved for months to afford a night in a place that promised luxury, but got side eyes, attitude, and excuses instead. So Malcolm started from the top. Every guest complaint? Reviewed. Every person mistreated? Compensated. Full refunds. Apologies sent. Discounts for future visits. And most importantly, each of them would now be welcomed back with red carpet treatment. Because Malcolm believed in second chances. Not for the people who abuse power, but for those who had it stolen from them. Next, he sent a company-wide memo. Clear, direct, no sugarcoating. If you can't treat every guest like they belong, you don't belong in this company. Respect isn't optional. It's the standard. He added, too many people mistake expensive suits and loud voices for power. But true power doesn't shout. It listens, it watches, and it acts. And then, he blacklisted Kim from ever working in any hotel under his name again. It wasn't about revenge. It was about protection. No more guests would face what he faced, because someone like Kim thought she could play gatekeeper to someone else's dignity. The next morning, the lobby was different. The energy had changed. Staff were alert, present, respectful. The whispers had traveled fast. Did you hear? He OWNS the hotel. He was the one she ignored. Now they knew, and now they'd remember. Malcolm walked through the lobby in a clean button-up and jeans. Nothing fancy. Still no name tag. Still no entourage. But everyone moved aside when he passed. He wasn't there to intimidate anyone. He was there to lead. A few hours later, Stephen showed up at his door. Not in a suit, just holding a folder. His face was pale, his voice shaky. Mr. Price, please. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't handle things right. I let too much slide. Malcolm listened, silent. I should have stood up sooner, Stephen continued. I thought keeping things quiet would keep things running, but I let this hotel lose its soul. Malcolm nodded slowly. You're right. You did. Stephen looked down. I understand why I was fired. I deserve it. Malcolm tilted his head. So what now? Stephen paused. I'm going to start over. Do things the right way. And if I ever run another team, I'll remember this lesson for the rest of my life. Malcolm looked him in the eye. Good. That's the one thing you've said that gives me hope. He didn't take Stephen back, but he wished him well. Not everyone needs revenge. Sometimes, knowing someone learned is enough. Over the next few weeks, that hotel became something new. The staff was retrained, not just in hospitality, but in humanity. New leadership came in, diverse, compassionate, sharp. And Malcolm? He didn't micromanage. He didn't hover. He simply visited, often unannounced, always low-key, to see if people had learned. And they had. Guests began leaving positive reviews. Everyone treated me like I mattered. They finally made me feel seen. Whatever they're doing now, keep it up. Months later, Malcolm stood at the grand opening of another hotel in the same city. Reporters gathered. Cameras flashed. A young woman reporter approached him with a microphone. Mr. Price, she asked, with all your success, what's the biggest lesson you've learned? Malcolm paused, looked at the crowd. Then he smiled and said, never forget where you came from, and never let anyone else forget where you belong. Because the moment you make someone feel invisible, you risk becoming replaceable. The room went quiet. And then came the applause. Because Malcolm wasn't just a hotel mogul. He was a man of principle. A man who had built an empire not just of concrete and glass, but of respect. So the next time someone walks into a hotel, dressed simple, soft-spoken, maybe looking like they don't fit the part, remember this. That could be the person who owns the building. The person who signs the paychecks. The person who sees everything. Like Malcolm Price, the man who showed the world that real power is quiet, calm, and unforgettable.